What happens when the person you trust most becomes the person threatening your very survival? The room was suffocating, the air heavy with the antiseptic sting of the hospital. Every shallow breath I drew through my oxygen tube felt like a lifeline. But in the hands of my sister, that lifeline was suddenly gone. She yanked it out. Cold, hard plastic torn from my face. Panic slammed into me like a freight train. My chest heaved, my vision blurred, and my voice caught somewhere between a sob and a scream. "You're faking this!" she hissed, her words sharp, jagged. "Stop pretending!" Stop pretending. The betrayal cut deeper than any needle, any illness ever could. Pretending was her specialty, pretending to care, pretending our family was normal, pretending she wasn't slowly destroying the person she claimed to love. Before this gets any more intense, if you want to feel every heartbeat, every gasp, every second of this story with me, subscribe to channel name, hit the like button, and drop a comment below. Because what you're about to hear, it isn't fiction, it's real, and it's terrifying. I grabbed at her wrist, desperate, trembling. "Stop! I need this! I need it to breathe!" My voice cracked under the weight of fear. Her eyes narrowed, a storm in their cold depths. "You're fine. You always play the sick card. You just want attention. Not this time." "Enough," she said, and the word landed on me like a hammer. Enough? My life wasn't hers to decide, but in that moment, it felt like it was. I tried to reach the portable oxygen tank at the foot of the bed, but she shoved me aside, her hand firm against my shoulder. "Stop acting, stop pretending, you're embarrassing yourself and me." Embarrassing her? As if my very survival had anything to do with appearances. Then the nurse arrived, drawn by the sounds of struggle. She froze in the doorway, wide-eyed, caught between shock and disbelief. "Ma'am, what's happening?" "She's faking it," my sister said instantly, her voice precise, cutting. "She doesn't need oxygen. She's manipulating everyone." I gasped, trying to explain, but the words stuck in my throat. The room spun, the absence of oxygen clouding my mind, my memories flashing in disjointed fragments. Hospital corridors, worried doctors, the reflection of my pale, desperate face in the sterile window. Then the doctor entered, a commanding presence. His eyes fell on me first, scanning my oxygen levels, my color, the tremor in my hands. He didn't need to hear a word to know the truth. "Step aside," he said to my sister, his voice firm, unwavering. She hesitated, fury and shock battling in her expression. "Let me explain," she began, but he cut her off with a glance so sharp it could slice through steel. "Now is not the time for accusations. Your sister needs immediate care. She is not pretending. Step away." I felt a strange mix of relief and lingering fear. Relief that someone, finally, saw the truth, but fear that my sister's disbelief could still spiral into something worse. She looked at him, at me, her face pale, lips trembling. Rage, fear, guilt, it was all tangled in her expression. I just, she stammered, but the doctor didn't wait. He checked my vitals, confirmed the oxygen flow, and finally placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "You're safe. She cannot stop your care. Not here. Not now." I sank into the mattress, trembling, my breaths shaky as the oxygen hissed back into my lungs. Tears blurred my vision, relief mingling with a bitter, lingering fear. How had it come to this? How could someone who shared my blood be capable of such cold cruelty? The nurse stayed close, watching my sister with a mixture of wariness and empathy. "Sometimes," she murmured, "the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too busy drawing in the life-giving air, each breath a victory, a defiance, a reminder that I was still here. And in that quiet, charged moment, I realized something terrifying and liberating at the same time. The truth would come out. It always does. And when it did, everyone would see what I had endured, not just in this room, but in every stolen breath, every whispered accusation, every time my sister chose her own pride over my life. The first crack in her armor had begun, and I knew deep down the days that followed were a blur of machines, whispered conversations, and the constant hum of the hospital that now felt more like a cage than a sanctuary. My sister didn't speak to me. Not really. She hovered at the edges of the room, her eyes darting with suspicion, every glance a silent accusation. Every time a nurse or doctor came near, she stepped forward, demanding explanations, challenging authority, as if proving I was faking could somehow erase the nightmare she had caused. I learned quickly that her anger wasn't about concern. It was about control, about power, about showing the world that she could decide what was real and what wasn't. I watched her from the thin veil of my oxygen mask. Every word she spoke to the staff like a dagger, every sharp gesture a silent threat. Then the letter arrived. Not just any letter, but the one that would change everything. The will. The reading was scheduled for the following week, and the family gathered in the austere lawyer's office, the air thick with tension that felt almost combustible. I was fragile, my body a cage of weakness, but my mind was sharper than ever. I could see the lies, the manipulations, the masks everyone wore, and I was ready to tear them all down. The room was crowded with relatives I barely recognized, distant cousins, old family friends, but all eyes were on my sister and me. Her confidence radiated like armor. She smiled with practiced charm, the same smile that had justified her cruelty, the same smile she used to manipulate everyone into thinking I was unstable. The lawyer, a tall man with thin glasses and a measured voice, began. "Thank you all for coming. We are here to read the last will and testament of—" He paused, glancing at me briefly. "Your late mother." A hush fell. Even my sister's smile faltered, just for a second. That brief flicker of uncertainty was enough to send a shiver down my spine. I could feel the eyes of the room on me, some curious, some judgmental, some downright skeptical. "She had specific instructions," the lawyer continued, "that every member of this family be present, and she insisted that certain truths be acknowledged in the reading of this will." My sister's hand tightened around the armrest of her chair. She looked ready to pounce, to disrupt, to claim the moral high ground even before the words were spoken. "What truths?" she asked, her voice a little too sharp, a little too eager to control the narrative. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "The first truth is regarding the care of her youngest child, her daughter, who has been receiving oxygen and medical attention." His eyes met mine. I could feel the weight of the room shift, every heartbeat synchronized with the tension in the air. My sister's lips parted in a mock expression of concern, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You mean her?" she sneered. "She's been pretending, yes? That's what this is about?" The lawyer shook his head slowly, a subtle exhale that seemed to release a storm into the room. "No, that is not what this is about. Your mother left a detailed note, verified by her attending physician, explaining the exact nature of her child's condition, the treatments required, and the dangers of interference from anyone, even family members." The room went silent. My sister's face drained of color, the confident mask cracking. She opened her mouth to speak, but the lawyer continued, pulling out a folded piece of paper. "Furthermore, the physician has submitted a statement to be read aloud today, as part of the will, regarding the medical facts that must be acknowledged for the sake of this family and this estate." A murmur rose in the room, curiosity, disbelief, some barely concealed anticipation. My sister's fingers dug into her lap. She looked like a caged animal, unsure whether to flee or attack. The lawyer unfolded the statement. The attending doctor states, the patient has a legitimate medically verified condition that requires continuous oxygen support. Any interference with her treatment can result in serious harm or death. Claims that she is faking illness are completely unfounded. Any obstruction of her care is a legal and ethical violation. The words struck like lightning. My sister's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes darted around the room, desperate for allies, for anyone to contradict the statement. But no one did. The silence was deafening. The truth had been delivered with surgical precision, and it left her exposed, vulnerable, and enraged all at once. She's lying, my sister blurted, her voice shaking. This is impossible. You can't. She isn't lying, I whispered, my voice barely audible but firm. She finally told the truth about me, about my life, about what you tried to do. A few gasps circled the room. Some family members leaned forward, whispers like sparks in dry grass. Others looked at my sister with growing suspicion. For the first time, her carefully constructed persona, strong, controlling, untoucha. The days after the will reading felt surreal, like walking through a storm while the world watched from behind glass. Every glance from my sister was a mixture of fury and calculation, her pride bruised beyond repair. But it wasn't just her I felt the tension from. It was the whispers, the sideways glances from relatives who had once laughed at my fragility, who had assumed my illness was an act. Now, they weren't laughing. They were watching, silently recalibrating their understanding of everything they thought they knew. I stayed close to the nurse, whose presence was both a shield and a reminder of how precarious my reality still was. Even with the doctor's statement and the legal affirmations, fear lingered like smoke, seeping into corners of every room I entered. My sister had a way of twisting space around her, making the ordinary threatening, making everyone feel like they were waiting for a disaster. Then it happened. She cornered me in the hospital hallway, a place usually bustling but now eerily quiet. Her eyes burned with something that was almost unhinged, her face pale, yet fiercely alive with anger. "You think you've won?" she hissed, stepping closer. "Do you think this changes anything? You're mine. You've always been mine. And no piece of paper, no doctor, no will stop me from proving it." I stood my ground, gripping the railing, the oxygen tube humming quietly beneath my nose. "No, I'm not yours. Not anymore. I'm done pretending, just like you pretended to care." Her laugh was low, bitter, dangerous. "Pretending? You have no idea what I've done for this family, for you." "I've seen enough," I said, my voice trembling but steady. "Enough to know that the lies, the manipulation, they stop here, with me. And everyone else will see it too." Her hand shot out, grabbing my arm, but the nurse was there instantly, gently but firmly guiding her back. "Step away," she said, voice calm but firm. "This ends now. You're not in control here." My sister glared at her, then at me, the fire in her eyes threatening to ignite everything in its path. And for a moment, I saw something human. A flicker of fear, a moment of uncertainty. But it vanished as quickly as it came. The next confrontation was unavoidable. The media had caught wind of the will, the doctor's statement, the accusation of attempted interference. Social media buzzed with speculation, and suddenly my family's private nightmare became public spectacle. Cameras followed, whispers spread, and I found myself walking into a world that seemed ready to judge me for surviving. Then came the phone call that shattered the fragile calm I had built. The lawyer had arranged for a mediated meeting between my sister and me under supervision to attempt some semblance of family reconciliation, or perhaps to control the narrative before it completely unraveled. I entered the room, my heart pounding, and saw her waiting, seated like a predator with a forced, polite smile. The mediator, a composed woman with glasses and a notebook, gestured for us to sit. "We're here to facilitate dialogue," she said calmly. to ensure everyone feels heard and to prevent further escalation. My sister's eyes never left mine. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, voice soft but venomous. "You're just playing the victim. That's your specialty, isn't it?" "I'm not playing," I said firmly, letting my gaze meet hers directly. "You tried to kill me. You pulled out my oxygen. That's not a game. That's not drama. That's real life." She flinched, as if my words had struck a nerve, but she quickly masked it with a defiant tilt of her chin. "You always twist things. You exaggerate. Everyone believes you over me because you cry more, because you act more. But I know the truth. I know you're manipulating everyone around you." The mediator held up a hand. "Let's stick to facts," she said, her voice even, guiding us both like a ship through stormy waters. "The doctor's statement, the legal documents, the testimony from staff, these are facts. They cannot be disputed without evidence, and interfering with your sister's care is legally and ethically prohibited." My sister's hands trembled, a subtle betrayal of the control she thought she had. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't think—" "You didn't think," I echoed, leaning forward. "You didn't think that ripping out my oxygen could have killed me? You didn't think that pretending I was faking could destroy everything I worked to survive?" She looked away, and for a fleeting second, I saw the raw human fracture beneath the layers of pride, anger, and denial. But she quickly snapped back, mask in place. "You'll regret this," she said, voice low but shaking. "I won't forgive you. I won't let this go." "I don't want your forgiveness," I said quietly, my chest rising and falling with each careful breath. "I want my life. And now, finally, everyone knows the truth." The mediator scribbled notes, the tension in the room so thick it felt like the storm hit faster than I could have imagined. Within hours of my sister storming out of that mediated meeting, whispers became headlines, and whispers online became a torrent of opinions, speculation, and judgment. Social media was alive with outrage, fascination, and disbelief. Screens everywhere displayed the stark truth. A sister accused of trying to harm her own sibling, a family torn apart, and a medical doctor's sworn statement proving what had once been dismissed as attention-seeking behavior. I watched the news feed scroll past my face, my story, my trauma. Some headlines painted me as the brave survivor, others framed the drama in sensationalist tones, as if my life had been a reality show rather than a near-death ordeal. But amidst all the noise, one thing was clear. The world had witnessed the betrayal, the confrontation, and the truth, and nothing could erase it now. My sister's world, in contrast, began to unravel. Calls from relatives turned into confrontations, friends questioned her actions, and the weight of public scrutiny pressed on her like a vice. People I had once feared judging me now stepped forward, offering support, validation, and acknowledgement of what I had endured. The aftermath of the will reading, the doctor's statement, and the mediated confrontation created a tension so thick that even casual observers could feel it. Every conversation seemed loaded, every glance a silent accusation. Family members who had previously doubted me approached cautiously, acknowledging quietly that the story I had told for months, years even, was real. The betrayal, the danger, the manipulation, it was no longer hidden behind polite smiles and whispers behind closed doors. And yet, the most profound moment came not from the media, not from the public, not from the legalities, but from the quiet, simple acknowledgement of my survival. Each morning, as I woke to the hiss of oxygen filling my lungs, I felt a new sense of clarity. I had survived not just illness, not just manipulation, not just betrayal, but the very worst of human cruelty disguised as familial care. The confrontation, the will reading, the doctor's testimony, they had all been necessary, and they had all culminated in a single, undeniable truth. I was no longer powerless. I was no longer invisible, and nothing, not even my own sister, could undo that. Yet as I reflected on the chaos, the fear, and the heartbreak, I couldn't ignore the deeper scars. Trust had been shattered, family bonds fractured beyond repair. My sister's actions had left a permanent mark on our lives, a shadow that would linger even as the world cheered my survival. It was a reminder that truth, while powerful, comes with consequences, and that justice, even when served, cannot always heal the emotional wounds inflicted along the way. In the public eye, the fallout continued. Social media debates raged. Supporters celebrated my courage. Critics questioned the motives of every family member. News outlets dissected every word of the doctor's statement, every moment of the will reading, every tense second of the confrontation. The story became more than just a family conflict. It became a symbol of survival, resilience, and the dangers of ignoring the voices of those in need. And amidst it all, I realized the most important lesson. The world can witness your struggle, but it cannot fight it for you. The power to survive, to speak, to assert your life belongs solely to the one living it. And in claiming that power, I had not only saved myself, but also ensured that the truth, no matter how ugly, painful, or shocking, could never be hidden again. Even as the dust settled, the echoes of that betrayal lingered. My sister remained defiant in private, though increasingly isolated. Family dynamics shifted, alliances formed, and conversations once taken for granted now carried the weight of history and consequence. But through it all, I remained steadfast. Every breath I drew, every glance I met, every conversation I navigated reminded me that I had survived, that my voice mattered, that my story could not be silenced. Now, looking back at the whirlwind of events, the danger, the betrayal, and the ultimate revelation, one thing is crystal clear. Survival is not passive. It is fierce, relentless, and unapologetic. And the truth, though it may arrive late in unexpected ways and at great personal cost, is unstoppable once it takes root. And that is where you come in. I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? How would you face a betrayal so personal, so close, that it threatened not only your trust, but your very life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about courage, resilience, and the moments that define us. And if you want to continue diving into these intense, dramatic, real-life stories, stories that shake you, move you, and make you feel every heartbeat, then make sure you subscribe to Channel Name. Hit that like button if this story moves.